Good morning, Elle Ingalls here at pressure-free.com. When I was growing up, there was a show on ABC called Wide World of Sports. And in the introduction, there was this horrific ski fall. And the line in it was the thrill of victory. There's something great that happened. I don't remember what that was, which is interesting. And then the ski fall, the agony of defeat. We watch that program religiously. And years later, when I was a first year student at Michigan and rowing in the varsity eight, my parents actually saw me on Wide World of Sports because there was a clip from the Midwest Championships where we lost to Wisconsin, actually. So that was the agony of defeat because there's a sprint race, immediately. Uh, I watch I watch the Olympics pretty religiously. I just watch the evening show, otherwise I'd be locked in all day and wouldn't get any work done. But I find it so interesting what's happening with a lot of the American athletes that were expected to do better than they are. And it's kind of faint there, but I have conditions, choices down here, and expectations on my whiteboard here. Is something I talk about quite a bit with my clients, that we have an expectation that's here, and here we are. It's like not happening. So this gap here is where we can easily fall in and trigger the stress response and have all sorts of not only negative thoughts, but visceral reactions. And if you were watching the Olympics yesterday, you definitely saw that with the US's top-rated skater coming in. And I can't believe that the camera people got the shots that they did. They were pretty awful after the event. Talk about the agony of defeat, showing the agony of defeat. I don't think we had to get that close up to see the agony of defeat, to be honest with you. But there is something about competition that we are attracted to seeing, both the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. So if you watch this, the skaters Amber Glenn and Madonna, who used to live down the street from me in Ann Arbor, I lived there. She was in school. She was in ballet class with my roommate. Um, Madonna called her and had a conversation because she's skating to one of Madonna's songs. Um, so there's another like huge leap of expectation to win this gold medal. Um, so it's like we're packing on expectations. It's almost like a setup by the media to just like keep piling on the expectation, which makes the agony of defeat even more crushing. And I'm not sure if I agree with that. We had a long conversation with one of my sons last night about that, wondering why are some of the US athletes not doing what we think we should do. We're brought more athletes to the Olympics than we ever have as a country. And it's interesting to dig into that. What's really happening to, for the most part, these are young people, to our young people and their ability to perform under pressure, which we're not seeing with some of the other athletes. Like, what is the difference? What's really happening? And I question if some of the techniques and things that are being used to help students, help young people with their mental health are actually not doing it at a really deep level. And I can say that because I've had so many young people, middle schoolers. I've coached as young as 10, so that would be elementary school, middle schoolers, high schoolers, college students who've tried all the things that one might read in the media, all the things that physicians have prescribed and mental health professionals have prescribed, and cognitive behavior therapy, and all they've tried so many things, yet they still feel anxious. They still feel like they're not good enough, like they can't make the cut. That they're in some cases that they're failures, they're failing life. And those are awful, awful feelings to have. And I'm think there's a couple factors coming in. We had the helicopter parent years where there was so much hovering on everything that was going on. Children didn't get to just go play in the park and just be free. Everything is structure, structure, structure. All the sports became structured instead of just going and playing a pickup game somewhere. Um, there were structured sports when I was growing up, but we still had plenty of time to play, and play we did. Also, I think there's like high expectations placed on students, and there's this little kind of thing that I see. Um, I see it sometimes when I'm at sporting events with youth, where I think that there is like a holdback of love. It's really weird, but is the love unconditional, or does the love have conditions to it? It can be so subtle, but a child can kind of they can feel that. They can feel those those subtle differences. And if the love and the caring is all in. Um, Gosh, so where am I going with this? As I look at what's happening, and oh, I want to also talk about Alyssa Liu and how when she was asked by the journalist, how can you, how could you do that? How can you be so free on the ice? She said, I don't know. I think that's really interesting that when we do well, we often don't have real reasons for it. Only that we could say, oh, I trained so hard and all this, and our mental health is right, or we could say all these things, but when I look at it, what it really comes down to is like she was just so in the zone, is a coined phrase, in the zone, um, which I've come to equate with she hasn't triggered the stress response. She's gone out onto the ice and probably all day long, she was absolutely fine with whatever the outcome would be. We have a lot of attachment to outcome in our country, which some other countries don't have based on their religious beliefs and their culture. But we have a very high attachment to outcome. So if you don't win, that's a real problem. That is true agony versus being in the process of becoming. That's why one of my favorite tools to teach, and it's so freeing for so many of my student athletes, my young athletes, but also for my executives, is the spirit of contribution. So with the spirit of contribution, you may have heard me talk about it before. I'll try to go a little deeper today. Um, when you're truly in the spirit of contribution, it's almost impossible to trigger the stress response because you're just contributing your best self, your gifts and talents to the best of your ability on that day with no fear of loss. No matter what happens, no matter where you end up placing, you had this experience and you just opened up yourself to share yourself for the good of all, for the good of the art form. When it comes to skating, it's a sport, but it's also an art. That's why it's so subjective and so difficult to judge, and we can have all these complaints about it. But in the end, there's this spirit that we feel. And to me, that spirit is the spirit of contribution. Going back to last week with the Olympics, if you watch the dance teams, the final dance team, the French dance team, was a complete contribution to the art, a complete flow on the ice. So some people also talk about flow energy. So in the zone, flow energy, that just opening up where we just don't have some might say, oh, you don't have a care in the world. You're just going out and doing this. When I was a young violinist in competitions, um, my contribution was contribution to the composer. Like I wasn't a creative artist. I was a recreative artist where I'm learning this piece by Bach or Bruch or um, Ravel, whatever it is, Debussy, and I'm trying to bring out like all the phrasing and all the beauty of the music. So when I would just tune into that, that's when I would play the best. Like there's no thought of, oh, I have to win. Just opening up to all of that. In fact, I remember when my senior year, I wanted to play an extremely hard couple of pieces. And my violin teacher said, I'd won this competition many times. She goes, you might not win. I said, I don't really care about that. I want to spend the time learning these pieces. Kind of like Amber Glenn in the triple axel. You're like, I want to be able to do that skill. And I don't, but I let go of the outcome. And that year I didn't win. And it didn't even bother me at all. It wasn't about that. I got great, the judges gave me great information because they really write a lot on the judging forms about how I could improve those pieces. That served me when I went to college, for sure. That level of critique on those hard pieces. So when we become daring, and I think that's one thing we love about watching sport is there's just like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this skill that hardly anyone can do, right? Now this sweet little Japanese girl, she can do it, right? I think she's, how old is she? 18? Very young. Um, the Russian girl's 17. So these are young women, these are girls, they're not 18 yet. And then there's women on the ice. So we have both. It's interesting. It's it's um it's you see maturity. You see maturity and then you can see breakdown. That is the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. And it's why we watch because we don't know what's going to happen. You know, let's replace all these athletes with robots that are going to be, some will be programmed to be defeated, some will be programmed to win. That's not how we are as humans. That's why I think this is it's so wonderful to watch it and to learn from it and to grow from it. Um, Bottom line though, if you can be in your activities, whatever they are, even doing the dishes or making a meal or going to a meeting, um, hanging out with friends, the more in the zone you are, the more full your life is. You're not in this gap. You're not falling into this gap where your expectations going to the party were this, but you felt miserable the whole time because you didn't know anybody. Um, you know, there's so many, most of us are always in the gap. We're always feeling like we're less than or it's not good enough. The meal was great, but it could have been better. And if we trigger the stress response in there, then we're tight. Then our body is literally hurting. Our brain is literally hurting. And it can take so much time to recover from that. And you may be vulnerable to trigger again and again and again. So you're always in the stress cycle. And I think I'm the only person that talks about the stress cycle of releases of two floods of hormones and how they just keep rolling and rolling and rolling until you break it. I had no idea I was in the stress cycle. I thought I had a pretty good handle on life, to be honest, until 2010 when I learned all this and figured this all out. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so caught in the stress cycle. It's time to break it. It's time to get clean from the inside. So, thrill of victory, agony of defeat. The Olympics continue for a few more days if you're watching them. And if you're not, maybe you have your own Olympics going on where you see your thrill of victory and your agony of defeat, where you have expectations and these are your current conditions and choices, and you feel like you're falling in the gap. Um, I'm here to support you. It's okay. It's going to be okay. We need to just take things one step at a time and be more in process, more in the zone. And that's one way you can have just a much happier and more fulfilling life. So, sure, great pressure-free day.